I want to go off script from the questions again, and I want to ask, you've worked on such diverse types of projects. There must be a tremendous amount of listening or research that goes into serving such diverse fields. Maybe you could speak to your process a little bit and how you are able to move in and out of different disparate type projects.
Yeah, thank you, Sean. If you don't listen in architecture, you're really just sort of being very egoic and putting up something that you think represents, right? And there's a lot of that goes on today. There's a lot of architecture. There are people say, this is what my client really wants. No, it doesn't work. I'll tell you a little technical story example. In the late 80s, I was working on an interior of 2-story interiors in Stamford, Connecticut. I was a young architect at a firm. We were doing these offices for an insurance company. We got entirely through the design, construction, everything they were all ready to move in. And of all things, these massive copy machines that they had in the 1980s, which are like crazy big machines you don't see today, would not fit in the copy room. So the client's ready to move in, and this is 2 floors of offices. A lot of people are working there, and they depend on this copy machine because that's, we were paper-based then. And the CEO goes to my boss and says, Harvey, I don't care how great a design this is, you screwed it up. And so Harvey, goes to me and others, like on his team. He goes, "What happened here?" And so anyway, the result of the story was that we said, well, the sales guy and the people at the copy company actually, they told us this, and they said this is the size that was right, and the field guys wouldn't install the copy machine because they didn't believe that the clearances were there to operate all these things that are like the actual parameters of the copy machine. But what it left me with was, it really comes down to, are you listening to all that you can listen to? Are you really trying to solve the actual significant aspects of the problem of design? Because if you do that, then whatever style you use, whatever way you design, is kind of secondary. This CEO even said, I don't care how great the design is. I want my copy machine to work. So that was a good lesson. Listen really carefully. And so that's what we do a lot of today. We spend a lot of time in programming. For the very first step of a project, we try very hard to develop a relationship with people, not just the client, but the client's team. We don't listen to just, if it's a corporation, we don't listen to just the CEO, let's say. We listen to the CFO also. So we want to know the financials of a project. We want to know as much as we can and ingest all of that and arrive at solutions that we hope embody as much of those things as we can, and try to find the issues before they get out that far again as they can.
That's great. I'm in gallery view, and I can see the facial reactions of, for example, our CFO, who was nodding in agreement with a lot of what you're saying. In entrepreneurship education, we have a saying, rigorously humble yourself before your customer. That comes to mind. So that's great.
I'll tell you, if I can interrupt you with this little story. I did a branch bank in Darien, Connecticut in the 90s for small local savings and loan, essentially. And I was interviewing with this CEO of the bank, and I asked him about how important sustainability and energy and those things were, which were really important to us, right? And he started glazing over. He's like, I just want that branch bank to, it's like, I need to get that done. All right. So, if you can get that done, then you're the guys. Okay. So we're like, okay, I'm not going to talk about that anymore. None of this energy, none of this like save the planet stuff. At the very end of the project, I went to him and I said, John, where would you like the refund check sent? And he said, what refund are you talking about? And I said, So you know all that stuff about environmentalism. We work with the utility company, and you've got a utility refund coming to you, and they want to know if they should send it to me or you. And he said, yeah, send it to me, okay? So the point was that, you know, we then said, gosh, the answer to sustainability at that point, you know, in the 90s and 2000s, was talk about the financial benefits of sustainability, because a lot of people aren't really into the social sort of, you know, save the planet aspect of it, but they really want to make sure that the business thrives. So that was a lesson.
That's great. That's great. So if you consider your career and think about the project that was the most challenging to execute, can you share that with us?
Yeah, yeah, that's an easy one. The most challenging one was when I moved in 2006 to Los Angeles. I came to a firm as a principal, a very large firm. It's 55,000 people now. And I was invited to be a principal, which was a rare thing. I was incredibly fortunate for that to happen. Part of why that did happen was because one of the principals who knew me very well, didn't tell me, but he was leaving. So I was essentially filling a hole. I didn't know that until I signed the paperwork. You know, Dana, you're leaving. Oh, you're leaving. Oh, okay. So this fellow leaves, and I took his spot, essentially. And the project that was occupying most of his time was the LA police headquarters. And this is a building that replaced what was called Parker Center. And if you watch LA Confidential, the old movie from 50 years ago or so, at the very end of this movie, the protagonists are walking away kind of in the sunlight, sunset sort of, and they're saying, well, all the LA police corruption, you know, well, we're going into a new day. You know, corruption's being solved, and we'll be moving into our new headquarters. And that was, in fact, a true fact. They moved into this building 50 years almost to the day, in a way, almost from the time that we then replaced that building with a new one. And as you might know, LA has had its share of corruption and problems and riots and things like that. So this building that I was working in 2006 to 2011 was almost as significant in terms of creating a sense of community and a sense of place and a sense of value for the Los Angeles Police Department. And so this building had 2,000 officers in it, 500,000 square feet, an entire city block with 2 or 3 levels, in fact, underground, 2 parking garages off-site, and a whole lot of security, and a lot of stuff which is pretty, you know, some of it, like they even told us, you're never going to know what we're going to put in these rooms because we have Homeland Security and things like that in them. And so it was a massive project. I ended up as the principal in charge when I came on board to take that fellow's place. What I didn't know, and they didn't tell me, was that while the city was in the red, you know, financially struggling badly, I had to ask for $3 million in additional fees that my firm had not asked for. So one principal leaves, I come in, they said, yeah, by the way, you just need to go to the city and ask for $3 million. It's probably not going to be hard to get, you know, I mean, a little hard. Well, everything about this building was hard. It was the most controversial project that the city had done in 50 years. It had an oversight committee that the mayor had appointed, which we sat with once a month and got tape recorded. I sat right next to the city's chief engineer, Gary Moore, for 3 years, being grilled by 3 guys who worked for the mayor. And Gary and I sat right in front of the tape recorder in a room that had 30 people in it. We all got questioned. So that project was very stressful, very intense, and actually 5 years long. We did it. We succeeded. The building was built on time and on budget. We won awards for actually for building teamwork. We pulled it off, man, but it was very stressful. It was the highest risk project that my firm, 55,000 people, had. They told me anywhere in the world that didn't already have a lawsuit against it. You know, we had no lawsuit. And so we made it. We pulled it off with a great team, frankly. You know, I had fantastic people working with.
It strikes me that when you first started talking about it, I imagined the struggle between creating a building that's secure and something of a fortress and also welcoming within a community. But when you put the layer of bureaucracy and budgetary constraints and everything else, I am amazed. So thank you for sharing that. That sounds like a great accomplishment.
Yeah, we had, if you're curious about this sort of thing, this is a very interesting and very different way of looking at civic architecture. You know, civic architecture is typically kind of monumental, you know, big facade. You know, we present ourselves. This is City Hall, or this is a cultural arts center, or, you know, a courthouse. You know, they're usually very much presented right at the street, you know, frontage, right along the front. And this building does the opposite. This building is 65% of the block is open space. The front face of the building doesn't do this, it angles back in. So to your point, you're actually welcomed into the site. And so there's a massive kind of open plaza in the front. You can walk through the building at ground level to the rear, to a park in the rear where you can walk your dog. It's all meant to be very open, very public, and organized so that people, in fact, can protest on the site. Like, we're the police. If you're going to protest, why don't you just protest here, okay? Because, you know, we made it a really nice spot for you to come in and protest, right? Come on over here and protest. What's interesting, though, as the architects, is that the rooftop is a pretty good spot for a bunch of officers to make sure that the entire site is very secure. I won't go into much more detail than that, but.
So it occurs to me you were practicing conscious architecture far before it was your tagline in your email.
Yes, we needed to be very conscious in a lot of ways on that project.
Yep.
And work with a lot of civic, you know, community leaders, council district people, and others.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun. It was 5 years of my life. And really, really great experience. I don't wish to do it again. But.
Thanks very much for watching. If you found it enlightening and interesting, then please like the video with your thumbs up. Please also subscribe to the channel to be notified of future episodes.